Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan. That over there is Izzy Gutierrez. Today's episode is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, crown is yours. All right, guys. We had a big weekend of stuff happening in the NBA. And Izzy, we're going to do a game that I don't believe you've done, but we've done in the past on this show. Whenever we have a lot of stuff to get to, we don't know what to get to first. Play a little game called Odd One Out. That's right. The producer selected 6 stories to discuss, but we only have time for 5. So we'll get 5 minutes to discuss topic 1, 4 minutes for topic 2, and so on and so forth.
And at the end, one of us is out?
No, the topic that we didn't get to is out. That's the odd one out, the final door there. So Izzy, I guess we'll start with what's behind door number 1.
Sure.
All right. Magic break the Cavs win streak. Oh, this was a great Sunday matinee game that distracted us from what the original Sunday matinee game was going to be. We'll more on that later. But there was no winning for the Cavs, Izzy, as their win
that's
streak
a 16-game win streak. That was their second 15 or more game win streak of the season. And they lost to an Orlando team. Now, they didn't have Evan Mobley, which important players, an all-star. They lost to a Magic team that's a little confusing. Like, we've spent early portions of the year thinking that they were going to be an Eastern Conference playoff team, sure thing. And the way they play defense, the way, Paolo Banchero can sort of be an all everything, sort of fit whatever, anything that you need on the team. And then he gets hurt and then comes back and Franz Wagner gets hurt and then Mo Wagner gets hurt. And now they're just like a play-in team, a very dangerous, like scary play-in team, especially for a one-game setting as this game would have it, but would explain. But is it enough to make me worry about the Cavs? No. Like, they're in a game where, again, against one of the better defensive teams in the league in terms of personnel, like, this can happen to them, especially without Evan Mobley.
Yeah, I mean, let's stick with the Cavs for a second because they are the best. They have the best record. They're the team that we all expect to be in the finals. This is the part that not baffles me, but raised my ears, right? Early in the year, we had David Aldridge on, and we asked him, hey, what do you think about the Cavs? And his thing was like, I don't think they have a bully. Like, the one bully they have is George Niang, and that's saying something. And then months later, last week we had Channing Frye, and Channing Frye pretty much said the same thing. They don't have a bully, right? And I guess it got me to thinking last night or yesterday afternoon, because Orlando is a tough ass team, right? They're the one thing that travels with them, their defense always is out there, are the Cavs too nice of a team?
Did the Magic just bully them?
Yeah, pretty much.
The thing about the Magic, so what do you consider a bully, right? Because, is it an offensive guy who gets his numbers regardless of what the defense does? Is it somebody who will just finish over you and really get his team going? Is it somebody on the defensive side who will just make a stand and really rally your guys? How do you see a bully being defined?
A bully for me is someone who is not afraid to go outside of the aesthetics of the game to change the outcome. So it could be on the offensive end where it's like, oh, our beautiful screening, cutting offense isn't working. F it. Give me the ball. Let me beat up on somebody and either get to the free throw line or get a layup. Or it could be on the defensive end where they're running up and down on us and someone's going to be like, enough of this. But either way, they're going to impose their will against the aesthetics of the game to change the outcome. That, to me, is what a bully is in a basketball sense.
I would generally, without having come up with my own definition in the past, would pretty much agree with you on that. Here's where I think the Cavs' problem is: their bullies might be coming off their bench. DeAndre Hunter and Ty Jerome have that personality about them. Like, they will, especially Ty, they will try, if needed, to take over a game knowing that they have that ability or that green light, if you will, from Kenny Atkinson. And so is that enough? Are those guys going to be finishing games for you? Hunter, probably, but will Ty Jerome over Darius Garland? Probably not. So I think that's a big question. And can Donovan Mitchell then play the bully role if it's not sort of in his nature?
The other thing I want to point out is Channing said to us last week, he said it as a positive about the Cavs. This team was winning games they weren't supposed to, right? Meaning they weren't operating at top efficiency, at top proficiency. And I think, again, Sunday's game was an example of that coming back to bite you. I've worked for the Suns when we won 15 games in a row, went 2-2, and then we won 17 games in a row after that. And what ends up happening is a couple of things. There is a fatigue there, but also there is a level of everybody coming in is more intense because they want to break that streak. And so, at some point, you're not going to give your best effort, and they're giving you their top effort, and that's what happens.
Real quick, I want to get back to the Magic just because to me, they're going to be that team that is going to scare the bejesus out of somebody if they make it out of the play-in. Like whether it be against the Cavs or whether it be against Boston. I mean, we all know Boston's ability to get bullied a little bit. With Paolo this year, they're only 13-22, which is kind of mind-boggling. You would think their best player in there, you need him. With Franz Wagner, 25-24, so they're better. With Jalen Suggs, they're 20-15, and he's out now. And then without Mo, who's out for the rest of the season, Mo Wagner, they are 18-12. That's their best winning percentage. So they've had to do a lot with a bunch of different combinations.
You know what I just heard from you? Mo Wagner is actually their best player.
There you go. I mean, he is a world champion, right?
Door number 2. What do we got? The Houston Rockets. Izzy Gutierrez's Houston Rockets win 6 straight. They've won 6 in a row. They're second in the West. They beat the Bulls, the Mavs, the Suns, the Magic, and the Pelicans twice. It is a little odd, or perhaps not, Izzy, that all of this good fortune happens when your boy, Amin Thompson, goes out.
I can't do look, I've grew up in an era where whenever LeBron was out, they'd say, oh, without LeBron, or whenever Dwayne was out, they're like, oh, without Wade, they're better. It's like, no, they're not better without Amin Thompson. They're just so deep that they have this ability to just fill in wherever necessary. Like they had Jabari Smith Jr. out for forever, and now he's back in the mix, and you've got Fred VanVleet, who'd been, I think he only came back for one game, sort of re-aggravated the injury, and then sat out a little bit more. He was supposed to be their stabilizing factor, or had been their stabilizing factor all year long. When we talked about them not having a closer, I don't necessarily believe that he would have been their quote unquote closer, but he would have put everybody in position would have maybe gotten Şengün the ball in better spots so that he could be the guy.
Did you ask him about that at All-Star break?
I asked Amin Thompson about that, and we played the clip during a previous episode, but and he said, we have multiple closers, and that's a good problem to have. I do wonder though, because they're on this win streak without a man, and he's sort of Wally pipped Jabari Smith Jr. because he took over his starting spot when Jabari got hurt. But now Tari Eason, he's got to worry about holding that spot, or Amin's got to worry about getting that spot back from Tari Eason, because with Fred back and a more sort of traditional offense, Tari can do anything. He can score from the outside, inside. He's still a tough defensive player. So, if they need more of a point guard to come off the bench, maybe they move Amin back to that role. But it is I think, to me, I'm just creating problems where there probably aren't any, but it just goes to show how many options these Rockets actually have.
It's crazy. By the way, I wonder how many people listening or watching are like, who's Wally Pipp? What does that mean, Wally Pipp? Look it up. Lou Gehrig, kids. But the interesting thing about the Rockets is we're watching this and they don't know any clue what they're doing. This is just them stumbling around in the dark with a matchstick lit, trying to find their way.
Wait, you don't think Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks are great leaders?
It's not even about leadership. It's just about this is, for the most part, for most of their rosters, uncharted territory. Yes, VanVleet and Jeff Green have won titles. Yes, Dillon Brooks has been on teams that have been to the playoffs. But really, when you talk about the meat of this roster, when you talk about Şengün, Eason, Jabari, Thompson, all of these guys that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, Jalen Green, they don't know what they're doing. And so it's hard not to be excited as a Rockets fan, right? Thinking about, oh, this is the worst it's going to look like. Barring egos getting involved or injuries, this is the worst version of this. Next year, they're going to be even better because they're going to have experiences that are inform how they should be playing. Yeah.
And to your point, I would say Jalen Green is probably the one of those guys who really doesn't consistently find his footing. It almost has to be hey, is this a Jalen Green game? We'll find out, right? But the other guys are getting a little bit better, sort of used to their roles, even if it's a heavy lifting role. Alperen Şengün probably being the best of them. And I want to throw this image up of one of his no-look passes from recently. This is the level of no-look on this is It's like the no-lookiest of no-look passes, definitely this year, and might be on like the Mount Rushmore of no-look passes. And so I say that to say like he is sort of feeling himself like a lot. This isn't even this is probably the no-lookiest of no-look passes, but this makes like a top 3 list of his no-look passes. And this guy's really feeling himself. By the way, the Mount Rushmore of no-look passes would just be like the back of guys' heads.
The back of people's heads, of course. I once told this story about Steve Nash in a playoff game against the Spurs throwing a left-handed pass between someone's legs to Amar'e Stoudemire for the dunk in the fourth quarter. And I remember asking like somebody on the staff, like, why the hell would he do that? And the answer was like, sometimes when you're that great, you just want to test the limits of your greatness. Like, can I do this? Am I capable of doing this? And looking at that still shot of him throwing that while he's looking at the crazy thing about that no look pass is the trailer right there. It would make perfect sense for him to be like, underhand, like you could toss it to this guy
going up. We've already passed our time on this topic though, even though Steve Nash seconds don't really count. Let's go to the door number 3. What do we got? Whew, the Wizards, we should just say, have swept the Nuggets. The Wizards beat the Nuggets again, this time in DC.
No, this one's in Denver.
This was in Denver.
This was in Denver. That's what makes it worse.
You made a declaration after this game about the Nuggets. What was it?
They're dead to me. They're dead. Michael, look, I'm gonna put it like this: the Nuggets could go faux en route to a championship. Doesn't matter. Worthless. They could do. Nikola Jokić could get to the finals and have the worst tummy ache ever, and the Nuggets still end up winning, and I still won't be impressed. Michael Malone, I love you, but you can't lose to the Wizards.
So in your personal record book, losing 2 games in a season to the Washington Wizards is more meaningful than winning every game in the playoffs.
Is more meaningful than winning every game in the playoffs with the MVP, the best player in the league, not available to you.
Well, yes. I will say this much, like, and we've been talking about Nikola Jokić, and he's been sort of dropping truth bombs lately. When he said, he's been playing his best basketball. So if SGA's game is better, okay. But it felt like he was sort of saying this is my trophy. But he said after this game that the regular season shows who you are. Like, you can't just turn it on and turn it off. And I mean, it sounds like he's telling us that this Nuggets team is not what it was 2 years ago. And especially without a healthy Aaron Gordon is sort of nothing to really be afraid of this postseason.
You know what I hate? The number of people hit me up yesterday talking about, I thought you said Jordan Poole. What happened with Jordan Poole? Because Jordan Poole hit pretty much the game winner from pretty deep. And I said to everyone, I guarantee none of y'all watched that game because he played like for most of the game. He had 6 turnovers. He had a couple of just boneheaded field goal attempts, deep threes for no reason, heat checks, even though he wasn't hot. But he hit 2 threes in the fourth down the stretch, and that's all anyone's going to remember. The reality is this game was won by Alex Sarr. It was won by Sean George. It was won by the young guys who, by the way, Kyle Kuzma on his way out the door a couple of months ago.
Well, they've been doing well since Kyle Kuzma left. And I think you mentioned Alex Sarr, who had 34 last night. He was the number 2 pick in the draft. He was out of OTE. I watched him play a bunch when he was still at OTE. And I said to myself, like, because everybody was questioning the Thompson twins and the level of play. And I was just like, no, these are really quality players that they're playing against. And then the next year, Sarr ends up getting drafted number 2. And early on, I was just like, all right, maybe he's not ready. But you watch him play now, and maybe he's in a great situation where you just allow him to play all those minutes and work through that early portion of his career. But he looks like a mini Wemby out there sometimes, which is crazy because he's 7 foot tall.
And because he's French.
Oh, well, there's that too. But yeah, right. Him and Chris Middleton taking a couple of charges. Like, that did not look like a group of players wanting to tank.
Denver's dead to me. Just want to reiterate that one time.
Will J. Cole go to their funeral?
No.
Let's go to door number 4. What do we got? Number 4. We got 2 minutes to discuss. Ooh, the race for number 4, right? In the Eastern Conference between the Pacers, the Pistons, and the Bucks. They're all separated by 1 game in the standings. I mean, it's kind of a simple question. Who do you trust?
I trust vets in this situation. Like, vets have an ability to understand what the stakes are better than anyone else. So in order, I go Bucks, then Pacers, then Pistons. The Pacers have the most talent, I think. They're the most talented team. I get it. Giannis is the best player among the whole group. But when you look at like a full roster, the Pacers have the deepest roster of the three teams. But again, I go back to vets know the value of a possession better than anyone else. I think the Bucks are going to end up getting that 4 seed. Izzy, what say you?
I think I need to reverse your order. Like, I think in this in a regular season, no, it's not just because of Asar. In a regular season, as my microphone jumps into my face, when you've got you need that. The youthfulness, you need that desire, you need that to be maintained throughout the season, even through the end of March into April. Like, these Pistons have been sort of riding this high for this entire season, and it's only sort of getting better as you go. Even the last game that JB Bickerstaff ranted against the Thunder, I believe, where they got 3 technicals in a quarter. Like, that is stuff to rally behind for these players who've never necessarily been through it, or who've only been in the league a year or two.
Counterpoint, you know who gets 3 technicals in a quarter? Young teams that don't know how to control their emotions.
Okay, but this is, I would say, for a playoff series, I'm not going to give them an advantage. But for a stretch of games where it requires just a lot of energy, a lot of just desire, a lot of just not knowing, right? Like not knowing where to spend your energy. I think they probably have the better story, and it's just in terms of narrative, like, the league feels like they want them to do well. They feel like the feel-good team. So, yeah, I'm not going to be mad. I think they probably creep up and take that 4 seed.
All right. You mentioned the Bickerstaff rant. Let's go ahead and play that clip before we start the timer.
I'm disgusted by the way that game was officiated. The level of disrespect was above and beyond. Our young players are competing their tail off. The least that they could do is get the same respect that everybody else in this league gets and get refereed the same way that everybody else in this league gets reffed.
Izzy, you have notes?
I do. Like, so first of all, the timing of the rant was great, right? You got this feel good team, and they run into some trouble here, and you're just like, this is my moment. And I love JB's voice already sounds like it's crackling, maybe on the verge of tears. So that definitely helps it. And he had a great case. Like, he had a great case in that game against who is the greatest foul merchant in the game right now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I love the banging on the table, definitely adds an element of, ooh, this is serious. It was missing a catchphrase. I love the Tony Reale, paper toss and hitting the microphone, getting an extra sound in there. Boom. It needed a go-to saying.
The toss should have been in his no-look Mount Rushmore right there, right? Because he got up and he threw it like this and hee-hee, that's what we needed. A little Magic Johnson, hee-hee.
Should have maybe take that for technicals or something, right? Because we had, who was that with a take that for data?
That was my guy Fizz.
Yeah, Fizdale. And so that's the only thing that was missing. The only thing that was missing there. Otherwise, I think otherwise it would have gone down in the Hall of Fame of great rants. This one, I feel like, is just, an all-star for the year.
Would you have liked it if he did the Mike Brown time after time was again and again and again and again? If he had just repeated the last few words,
there's got to be something that makes hook. It sort of memeable.
We need a hook. And shout out to Mark Dagnall, who basically said what I said: just tell your players to control their emotions, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we didn't have time for behind door number 6. It's the topic that was odd one out. It's the Jazz being fined $100,000 for violating the player participation program. According to the league, the violation occurred when the Jazz failed to make power forward Lauri Markkanen available when Utah took on the host. God damn. How are these guys still? I got to talk to Hank. The Washington Wizards keep showing up everywhere in our rundown. And it's the most attention for the worst team ever.
I'm also confused. Are we not supposed to talk about this?
No,
are we supposed to talk about this?
We're not talking about it.
Ball out.
It's the odd one out.
Ball. Welcome back to Oddball. I mean, there's a lot of sports going on this time of year because you got to make up for the lack of football. So a lot of things could get lost in the mix. We will not allow that to happen to what was on Sunday quite possibly the saddest NBA game of all time, maybe the saddest professional sporting game of all time. It was played between the Mavericks and the Sixers. There were 20 players out for both of these teams. I mean, when you saw them warming up, it was 6 and 7 players from each team. It looked like an empty gym. It looked like, you just walked in and they were warming up after shoot around or something like that. Yeah. there's so many levels to this because you've got, the two-way contracts where guys are only eligible for so much time. And you've got aprons and second aprons where players might not be able to, or the team might not be able to sign another player. What are we looking at here? What makes this so especially sad?
So first of all, absolutely like a rec league. I cannot confirm this, but I heard the get-in price for Mavs Sixers was they'll pay you to come to the game. That's what it is. I've never seen that before on, it's game time.
In this
where
economy?
It's like, hey, here's $40. Come watch the game. But no, so this is the deal, right? There's a couple of things. This is the anatomy of how this implosion happens for the Dallas Mavericks specifically. You start with last offseason, you sign Klay Thompson through sign and trade. Mm-hmm. In the NBA, in the collective bargaining agreement, the rule is if you use any tool that is earmarked for a non-tax-paying team, like the sign and trades are only for teams that aren't in the luxury tax, you then cannot go above the first apron. That is your hard cap. And the reason for that is they didn't want anyone to say, yeah, we're a non-tax-paying team, that's why we're going to use this sign and trade. And then later on in the season, you acquire someone who's big money and like, okay, so we'll pay the tax. I mean, clearly at the time, we were sincere. So the league, in order to keep teams honest, put that rule in there. Well, okay, you're hard cap. But then through a series of deals, right, the Luka deal, which brought back Anthony Davis and brought the salary up. But then also the Caleb Martin deal, who Caleb makes more money than Quentin Grimes, who when it was outgoing. Those things ate up the cushion that they had with regards to that hard cap. They have $51,000 in space. Now, I know what you're thinking. I mean, they've got two-way players. Just play the two-way players. The problem is, the rule is, you're a two-way player. It's the number of games you were on the active roster. It's not the number of games you actually played. So it doesn't matter how many games Brandon Williams and Kessler Edwards actually played. They were eligible for 45 plus games apiece. And they only get 50. So we're in a place where Brandon Williams only has 5 games left. Kessler Edwards only has 2 games left. Now, Kai Jones has 11 games left, but I think he's hurt. He hasn't played a whole lot.
And the Mavericks have 13 games left.
They have 13 games left. So this is the part where we've got an eye on them, and there is a drop dead date that if they cannot figure out a way either for someone to get miraculously healthy, then they might get to a place, Izzy, where they don't have enough players to field an active roster, at which point the rule is you have to forfeit the game. And that is, to my knowledge, has never happened in the history of the NBA. I learned about all this through Bobby Marks of ESPN. Bobby doesn't think it's happened before either. I mean, we talk about a lot of bad teams and a lot of disastrous seasons over almost 80 years of NBA history, Izzy. Never.
Jason Kidd to the rescue, baby. He tears open his suit jacket. There's a jersey on underneath it. On the back, it says number 0 because he's getting paid $0 to do it.
That's the word. I know, because a lot of people are like, just sign a 10-day. They can't sign from the G League. They can't sign up a 10-day. This is what they are right now. Somebody that gets healthy or they forfeit games coming up to.
That team used to have Luka Doncic, just so you know.
Yeah, and went to the finals less than a year ago.
Crazy.
All right. Time for another edition of Hot Streak. Hot Streak is presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Hell yeah.
Okay, we're on a 4-game win streak right now, Izzy. Wow. We are flying high. Last week, we took the Nuggets +8 against the Thunder. The game, the Nuggets won by 13, not the one they lost by 24, right? We took the second game of that, right? So here are some games we can choose from. Nuggets at Warriors. As we mentioned, the Nuggets are coming off a loss to the Wizards. Warriors, meanwhile, on a 7-game win streak. Warriors are 4.5-point favorites. You think the Nuggets will redeem themselves here, Izzy?
That one scares me a little bit. I think the Warriors have been beating up on some less than great teams, and the Nuggets are on, motivated to, let's say, play well. So let's see what else do we have.
We're at Grizz at Kings. The Grizzlies crushed the Heat over the weekend after losing to the Cavs. Meanwhile, the Kings are vying for a play-in spot at 9th in the standings. Mavs are 10th and Suns are 11th behind them.
Okay, and the last game, because I'm not sure about that one, Pacers at Timberwolves. Yep. Timberwolves are 7.5-point favorites. That currently 5th in the Eastern Conference. The Pacers are, with Halliburton playing really well. All right, so what do we have? We got the Nuggets +4.5, or the Warriors -4.5, the Grizz +3, the Kings -3, or the Pacers +7.5, or the T-Wolves -7.5. You know what? I think based on current form, I think I want to go Warriors -4.5.
Really? I wanted to go Memphis, right? Because everyone else, I'm like, Warriors have a paper win streak where we're like,
you know what? I love that pick.
Same thing. Yeah, let's go Grizzlies.
Grizzlies +3. Keep this streak going, baby.